And here I am typing away, thinking, oh no, I could be recording. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Are there any questions on that one? Because it is such a big part of what we want to give grants for. I must have said it perfectly.
Not your physical hand.
Oh, no, this one.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, can I just ask, is there a size organisation that you under which you wouldn't look at, or
there are rules on revenue that we do have. I think it's 15 million. I don't know, Shona, what are the exact rules on size?
15 million on turnover for general fund and 10 up to 10 for regional.
And so the reason why those limits are in place is so we can really make the quantum of the funds of the grant really impact the most organizations that really need the assistance. I mean, everyone needs assistance at this time. We understand that, but we feel that the 30,000 grant, the max 30,000 grant, is most effective in those small organizations. We have recently increased that to the 15 million because we do want to capture more organizations, and we are most interested in supporting the actual projects itself. So it's not necessarily the great services that everyone does, because everyone's doing great services. It's the project that we're looking at.
Scalability.
Yeah. Danielle, you have your hand up?
Oh, yeah, it's actually Michelle.
Michelle.
It's her name. Is there any difference between funding something that is a new project or a project that's been piloted in a small scale but need the capacity to scale it up across the state, for instance?
No, there isn't. There is very little distinction on that. It's more around you guys articulating the value of your project. So it is hard. We'll probably get into this in a later stage, but startups are a very difficult one for us to grant the grants to, just because there's the lack of history of
as an organisation, you mean startup organisation, not project?
Yes, yeah, organisation. So that's the hardest one, but I think we'll get to that later stage.
Yeah. Okay, there's no other questions there, and obviously all throughout this session, please put your hand up anytime you'd like to ask a question. I think some people do get a bit confused. I know that I get a few calls through the year just in terms of training education. So the examples of the types of training education that would be eligible. I guess maybe you can even say what's not eligible in your view.
It is the hardest part of these sort of applications is the training and education piece, because it needs to be distinct on the training of for your service delivery versus putting in place a new way of training your service providers to improve their success in whatever field that you are in. So training, education, can you give a few, Shona, in terms of what has been successful and what hasn't been successful?
Yeah, certainly volunteer training, that sort of thing. That's and I think where we have dissected some applications, there's been like reward for the volunteers, or we've taken out a few items where they've been given a voucher for this or about that sort of cost we've sort of taken away. And we think what's important is the training.
So just to be clear on that one, it's we're not in the sort of business of rewarding your volunteers on a great job. Like we acknowledge that volunteers put so much time in, and they're the lifeblood of everyone's organization. But this is for growing your organization to be able to deliver bigger and better services in the future, not just a short-term reward for
board members, sort of training board members.
Yeah, so we do find that your strategic piece is such an important piece for long-term delivery of a service and the improvement. So we do like a lot of boards that are in place, are volunteer boards, and they don't necessarily have the skill sets. So we do support a lot of strategic days to get that strategic plan, and we do support board education and training, but it's a very difficult one because there are quite a lot of big organizations that give your board direction and stuff that costs a lot of money, and sometimes we do have a look and we don't see the value in sending directors potentially to the Australian directors course, because it's so expensive and it's so focused on one individual that if that individual leaves, all that value is gone. So we try and focus any education and training on people that are part of the organization forever and will be able to sort of take that and train up other people to build the capacity into the future.
Yeah. Great. And so I think the most common mistakes in this year's applications is worth sort of highlighting.
So not really mistakes, more in probably aren't putting yourself in the best light. So remembering we are reading a lot of grants, and so it's pretty important to cover things. So just remembering the most important one for me is you need to sell your organization on what you're doing and what's important for you to deliver, who you're delivering to. But the most important thing is the project that you are wanting to financially support. So it's not dedicating pages and pages and pages to your charity. It's more focused on your project and where your project is going to benefit the community. So that's probably the biggest one, because remembering we've got 150 applicants from the best charities in the whole of Queensland that are putting forward their ideas. So we try and take away our personal sort of pet likes in this sort of space to be more focused on the project and how your project is going to be delivered and improve your communities or your service delivery in the future. Another one is being pretty clear on your spending. It's an important one for us to know that you've done the legwork on what is going to be supported in the project. We do know it's impossible to know exactly how much it's going to cost, because sometimes you're waiting for the grant to be able to see what you can spend on. But it's important to have done the legwork up front on what it's going to cost. An important one is also tying in the project to your strategy, your long-term strategy of your organization on your service delivery. It's an important one to bring that back. Other things is really to show your bang for your buck. So it is important because we are looking through all these grant applicants, and we we want to sort of support everyone, but we've got a limited sort of pool to do it. So you are competing for the grants against the other applicants. So you need to really be showing your bang for buck for your project. That's where you're going to be successful in articulating your project and articulating the value of the project to improve the impact you're having in your communities.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Anything else there, Shona?
No, that's good. Yeah, I feel like you covered everything that I was thinking as well. So, yeah, no, that's good. So to help the organisation prepare for the grant round, what would you consider important strategic objectives? You probably answered that already a little bit, but is there anything else that you wanted to elaborate on there?
I think it's also making sure your timelines are in there. You know what you can achieve in the time frame. So not being too ambitious on things that you're probably not going to be able to get to. It is an annual grant, so we do want you to be able to deliver everything within the year. Make sure your key messages are highlighted, and in your summary, just what is success, what is the benefits that's going to be delivered as far as the project is concerned. I think that's one of the biggest things that you need to be take your time to do. And just on something that I probably would say in this space is we do know that different organizations have different budgets to be able to do these kind of grants. So a lot of organizations too have professional grant writers that do put in the time to do these type of things. It isn't a huge determinant for us if you are articulating your value and your purpose for the project and your benefits. You know, like we don't really mind that it isn't perfectly written or what have you, as long as you are conveying your project and why we should be supporting your project.
Yeah. Yeah, great. We did have a question from Claire Easton that she sent to us earlier in the week as a grant writer. She was asking, does Queensland Gives have a preferred style of writing for applications? Example, lots of dot points or lots of few words in between, or more of a storytelling approach?
It's a very difficult one because we've seen a lot of different ways of writing being successful. I think the most important part of it is telling the story on one, what your organization does, but two, more on the project itself and how it's going to benefit. Stats are always very important in terms of how many people is going to benefit from this. How is this going to improve your service delivery in the future? Those type of stats. Stats are, or data is important to set the scene as well. But the actual data points for the project is also very important, which is sometimes a harder part to put in place. But in terms of remembering, we have got 100 to read, and so if you understand that, it might be an easier one to put in place. So be pretty crystal clear on your message. The more waffle becomes harder to give an instant tick.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And it's I think it's a little bit, sometimes it is, I think the questions whether they get changed slightly, there's a lot of there can be a bit of repetitiveness, like maybe sometimes in the answering of the question. So yeah.
Yeah, and like when we read it, we don't necessarily read, you know, like if you repeat what you said in section 1 or in section 2 just because you think you need to. We look at it as a whole grant application. So we're reading it. So don't repeat yourself where you don't need to for effect.
Mm. Yeah.
Fiona's got a hand up.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Fiona, are you? I can't see your face. Are you there, Fiona? Maybe on mute. I can't see if she's talking.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
Maybe let's come back to Fiona.
Yeah. So going from there. So what are some of the key points that that you make in your application to stand out from the rest? So yeah.
Some of the differences, because as I sort of said earlier, it is competing against different grant applications. And so things that we do look at is geography. You know, if you are doing services in the regions, we do sort of have an extra look at that. So we do try and disperse across Queensland. So it is dependent on some of the other applications in that sort of area. We don't want to just focus in southeast Queensland, in sort of Brisbane sort of area. Demographics, who is being impacted, what sort of people are or things are getting impacted by the grant and the services. Is it the old people or the young people or what have you, disadvantaged, that sort of thing. What else? I think it's very difficult because it does change year on year what is impactful. Impact on Indigenous sort of cohort is an important one for us as well. But generally it is a year on year type thing where you can definitely see good applicants, good grant applicants, and some that you think, oh, that would be a really good project, but it doesn't really show value for money. And so sometimes it is in the putting down on paper what you want to do that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Fiona was asking, can we comment on salaries, example CEO? So that is a question that we're going to talk about later, but we can bring that up now. So salaries is a big one, isn't it? It's a big...
It is a big one. And so in the spirit of capacity building, it isn't really improving the capacity of future service delivery if you're just paying a salary of your staff. We do look at salaries. Salaries are fine when it is for the specific project itself. So a CEO salary wouldn't really come into your capacity building sort of area, but getting somebody in to build the CRM within your organization, that's going to be a lasting fixture. But as I said, training of CEOs will probably be more possible to fund. If you're articulating, you're really pulling the link from the type of training or education they're getting to the future delivery within the organization.
Yeah. So when we talk about being very clear on the budget and the cost of everything, we felt like that needed to be a bit more detailed in some applications. So would you sort of suggest that you try, if you're wanting a capacity building grant from us, that you try and have that in-kind donation from someone else on the salary, so that you have more of a chance of receiving a grant from us because the salary is being looked after somewhere else? Is that sort of
not necessarily. Not necessarily. It's the type of salary that we will be funding. So it's like a CEO is a perfect example. Is the CEO is there to drive the business on a yearly basis. So that's their job, is to drive it. It's not on necessarily for a project-based thing, bringing someone in. And so that, I think that's your difference on what that salary is being used for.
Yeah, and not being too heavy in terms of the whole ask though of the.
Again, it is case by case on level of salaries, but it's more for me on what the salary is being used for. So like if you're thinking about bringing someone on to do a specific task on the project that's going to be beneficial in the future, then if you think of it like a consultant type thing, like sometimes it is so much easier and better for value for money to bring someone in and pay them directly rather than a consultant coming in to help with your CRM. So that's your sort of your funding sort of potential.
Yeah. Okay.
Paul's got a question.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks. So I just wanted to ask a question more about the salary piece, and I'm happy to do this offline with you later on. But so I work for Frontier Services. One of our core programs are non-secular bush chaplains located in remote and regional locations. So our programs are our bush chaplains, which our biggest cost is their salaries and associated stipend costs. So in this, and often, we look to have them in place for a minimum of 3 years because it takes time to build their relationship into the local community. So yeah, just curious. I mean, I'm happy to take this offline because obviously it relates to us specifically, but in some instances, salaries are the program.
Yeah, that's an example.
It gets a little bit frustrating sometimes where we're always looking at we can't fund salaries.
So again, is the salary for delivery of your service?
In this instance, it would be because the bush chaplain is the service in the location. So they're in the location. They provide non-secular pastoral support to anybody in the community based on our PBI. So they essentially are the program, and they are the program essentially.
Well, you see, it's very difficult to fund that in a capacity building type grant if it is paying for your service delivery, because that it also depends on how you articulated it in your grant application. But it just sounds like that is paying for the service delivery, which isn't the point of the capacity building. The capacity building would be to potentially improve the educational training so that there's more potential for volunteers in that space or what have you. It's difficult for me to comment exactly, not knowing.
Yeah, I might see if I can organise a meeting with you, Alistair, because we put in a volunteer capacity building grant last year. We were unsuccessful, and I'm sort of listening to what you've got to say, and I'm looking at the application, and I'm still a little bit stunned about why we were unsuccessful. So maybe if I could organise a time with you at a later date to go through that, that would be great.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. There is a question from Fiona. If regional area is not listed on the website, except example Gladstone, is this area still eligible? It does depend if you're going for general fund or Queensland wide is eligible.
Absolutely. For this sort of grant, we do term anything outside of sort of your big cities in Queensland regional. So Gladstone's very regional in our sort of thought process. So we do try and have a spread geographically of where grants do go.
Yeah. Gladstone doesn't fall under the Northern Queensland so you would have to, if it was that area, you would have to would only be able to apply for the general fund grant. Yes. Yeah. Are you likely to prioritise projects that impact large numbers of people? Can be challenging for small charities. Do you have a kind of ratio that you utilise to assess cost per number of people benefiting?
No, it's a very difficult one for us to assess in terms of number. We do like to see the impact being on greater numbers in the community, but it hasn't precluded the impact. So if you do go in really remote areas, you're not actually impacting that many people, but we do recognize the need for some of those services in there. So we really do reflect that in some of our grants. Often those type of really remote services slip through the cracks of a lot of funding sort of models. So we do try and support those sort of things when the project itself is sustainable and has a long-term future in the service delivery. We do actually really like those type of grants.
Yeah. And any tips on how to quantify or show impact for new or pilot projects that don't have comprehensive data yet?
It is a difficult one on pilot projects. We have supported in the past pilot projects with numbers around your best guesses. And we've also supported projects that are the next stage in development after a pilot project as well. So we do try and spread the love into the different stages of development as well.
Yeah.
But obviously it's easier for us to support something that is clearly defined and has history on success and that sort of thing. So if you're doing a pilot and you've done pilots in the past, that's a good stat to be putting in, that you've gone through it. We did a pilot on this and we've been able to execute in this, and it improved our service delivery about yay much. That's a good stat as well.
Yeah.
Because ultimately we are also looking at the project as the potential for success of that project as well. So if there's lack of funding, if there's lack of experience in executing these type of things, it's harder to support compared to a pilot where you've got experience, you've got money, you've got all the things that are your main causes of failure.
Yeah, great. Do you consider applications from consortiums of community groups?
We do. A couple of years ago, we actually tried very hard to get charities to work together for a bigger impact. And a lot of it really worked, but there were a lot that was harder than we thought it was. So one of our aims in Queensland Give is to be able to bring people, charities, like-minded people together to be able to deliver a bigger and better service than people would by themselves. But it is a very difficult thing, and we early on our journey to be able to foster that. But we really do want that fostering of that community between different charities or causes.
Mm. Yeah, great. I don't think there are any other questions. Fiona still, I think, has her hand up, but I think we've answered that from the written question. And just a few sort of quick questions around, like we've discussed the turnover. I think some questions in the past have been, you know, if we see turnover 15 million for general fund and 10 million for regional, you know, how strict are we? We stick to that, don't we? We really do stick to that. Like
we are strict to that. Sometimes there are situations that we will look into. So if it's a bigger organization, but the specific Queensland type branch is really impactful, it's a smaller number than the 15 million, we will look at it. But a lot of those questions should go through Shona beforehand. So we don't want people to, we realize it's a huge undertaking. It's a lot of effort, a lot of time goes into these type of things. So if there are eligibility questions that are out there, please talk to Shona before you put lots of time and effort in it. And more often than not, we'll be able to work through those quite quickly.
Yeah. And some other common questions like that, again, to call me if you need to verify, but like being based in New South Wales, we've had quite a few applications that are based in New South Wales. The head office is there, but they are very Queensland centric, and that doesn't exclude them from applying. Yeah,
it doesn't. But just remembering, we are Queensland Gives, so that is our focus.
Yeah. And just really, being able to really show that the impact is in Queensland, that's obviously priority, top priority.
If there's been pilots or what have you done elsewhere, that's good, useful information. If you want to use that to execute in Queensland, then that's great supporting documentation. But we do want the benefit to go to Queensland and Queensland communities.
Yeah. What are the rules around our project reaching our organisation nationally? So that is, you know, one quite often in an application where they really do mention a lot about national reach. Obviously, that's ultimately what you're happy to see.
Although we are Queensland focused and we will support Queensland communities, we just want giving in Australia, you know. So if we are the guinea pigs in terms of some service within Queensland, we're very keen to support that. And if that gets taken to other parts of the country, then we're fine with it. That's a great outcome.
Yeah. I guess it's just making sure that project is focusing on Queensland, and you're clarifying that you'd like, you know, nothing wrong with saying that you'd like to see that reach nationally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fiona's just asked another question. Can we fund through an auspicing body like ANHCA's public fund?
So we have had a lot of auspicing in the past. Again, if you can take your details through Shona, just so we are clear up front what the requirements are, because we have had some fall through in the past. It is also the applicant's responsibility to make sure that the auspicing partner is completely on board with it, because there are requirements from the auspicing partner to fulfill in this process as well.
Yeah, and quite often, more times than not, the auspicing partner is a part of the project, although they're not applying, they have some sort of relation to the project, which is obviously very handy, and yeah, it's ideal, but it's not excluding, of course. Can you please clarify regarding organisations from Queensland? Our geographical remit is Southeast Queensland. Would we not be considered due to this?
No, you definitely are fully in the sort of scope of what we will want to support. So again, it's all about the project and the impact, the benefit that the project has.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're, exactly, if it's just in Southeast Queensland, that's not a problem.
So I think maybe my comments earlier about trying to have a geographical sort of impact. A few years ago, we did focus probably more on sort of your sort of Southeast Queensland type world. We do try and spread the love around the organisation, around the country or the state.
Yeah, and there's another question from Fiona about the geographical boundary. Is it based on Southeast Queensland council areas or electrical boundaries or government departmental areas? I think that's more relevant to the regional committees, but we don't base it on council areas. I am trying to get a little bit of more of a clear. I think there's a lot of grey area. Like I know Northern Queensland is very, very vast. They find it. They have a little limited, probably the smallest budget to play with, and they struggle with the central Queensland that we don't have covered in the regional, big area to cover there, and so I think there's a bit of grey area as to who you can apply where. Obviously, general fund, it doesn't matter where you are based in Queensland, but I do plan to upgrade the map a bit more, and I'm thinking maybe leaning more towards perhaps sort of outlining it from maybe electrical boundaries or council areas at least. Yeah, so I will be looking at it this year, maybe just to reconsider that. Would you consider a team building staff training workshop type event? This includes travel and accommodation, presenters, etc., for staff to come together, improve culture, collective thinking, service delivery improvements. So just, is that sort of a team building staff training workshop type event?
I don't think it's precluded in capacity building, but I think it's a very difficult project to show value of that type of activity when you're comparing it against some of the other projects that it's an easier one to show the impact on the future sustainability of your service delivery. So it probably isn't going to be up there with the projects that other people are putting forward.
Yeah.
But in terms of travel aspects, accommodation, we have funded those in the past for specific things. So it's not necessarily the spending categories that we would have a problem with. It would be more, is that the best use of our funds to support a growing organization?
I don't think we have any other questions at this point. We do have, would anyone else like the opportunity just to ask any questions? We're getting to the end. We do have Peter Newsom. Is Peter online? I haven't actually checked to see if he's jumped online. We were just giving him the opportunity to just discuss Google Ads for not-for-profit organisations.
Yes, I am online.
Thank you. Sorry, there are so many names I can't keep track. Alistair, did you have anything else you'd like to clarify, or is there any other questions from anyone?
I don't. I just want to say thank you for everything you guys do. When we do read all the grants that are coming through, we appreciate that this country runs on volunteers and organizations like yourself. So I'm very proud and fortunate to be in my position to just scratch the surface to see what you guys are doing. So thank you very much. And if we had more money, we'd love to fund more people, but our fund is growing. And so we will be able to fund more going forward.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even this year we'll have more to fund, so that's exciting. And just a reminder that everyone can apply, as long as you obviously fit within the regions. You can apply for all regions and general fund all at once. So obviously capacity building being your priority for the general fund, but and the other thing I wanted to just also remind everyone is the thinking about your champions in your area. You'd probably be aware of Philanthropy Week for Queensland Gives, and we have nominees that we'd like to for any of you to bring forward for the awards, Philanthropy Awards, and there's also the photo challenge to consider as well. And you can gift your charity of choice $2,000 if you win the photo challenge, and then also nominees are also able to gift their charity of choice if they become the winner. Are awarded. We don't like to call them winners. Everyone's a winner, but if they're awarded Philanthropy of the Year. So that's just something to consider as well and keep in mind. And that all opens up in January next year. So. But Peter, thank you very much for your time. Alistair, thank you for your time. You are most welcome to stay on if you like, or
I'll stay on.
That's great. Peter, thank you. So this is Peter from Fractal Marketing Agency, and I will leave this to you. Hand it over to you, Peter.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shona. And really, really useful information as well, Alistair. And appreciate everyone's time here. So I won't take up too much time, but basically I just wanted to, we work as a marketing agency. We work with a lot of charities and not-for-profits. And one of our objectives here is just to basically inform everyone that there's a Google not-for-profit charity advertising grant that is available to any organisation registered as a charity or a non-profit. And what it allows you to do is tap into, because it's delivered from Google US, the currency is in United States dollars, but they allow pretty much any non-profit up to $10,000 US dollars per month in advertising credits. So $120,000 worth of advertising spend per year, completely free of charge to help promote your charity, to find volunteers, to raise donations and generally raise awareness. There's specific sort of criteria and conditions as to how it's used and the different Google products that you can utilize with the advertising. So, you know, there's certain limits. You can't run YouTube ads, for instance, but you can run Google search ads. They put sort of caps and spending limits on specific keywords, and they don't allow certain commercial terms. So if you're advertising services that, you know, are commercial in nature, you will run into, you know, some challenges with utilizing the grant. But outside of that, it's available to everybody, and I just wanted to let people know and to answer any questions around, you know, what that process might look like. And we put together a free sort of guide or a white paper, which we can distribute, that basically walks you through the process as to how to register and set that up for yourselves, and then, you know, get that going, so that, you know, outside of the amazing work that Queensland Gives does, you can also get funding from Google to also help promote your services. So do we have any general questions around that in the last few minutes before we wrap up?
Yeah.
How do you actually apply for the grant? Is it
so it's a two-step process. The first step is you jump into Google has a not-for-profit portal where you go through and you register your charity as a non-profit on Google. Once you go through and do that, it opens up an area where it gives you the different Google non-profit offerings that they will provide. And in that list there is the advertising grant. Now, there are other services as well that they do provide. So you can get credits towards running your emails through Google and other Google suite of services. But that can get a little bit more technical to set up, whereas going through and just qualifying for the ads grant is a very, very straightforward thing. You just have to go through, register, and if you are a registered nonprofit, it'll go through quite easily. There is a question there. Do you have to go through and apply each year? No. Once you've applied once and you've got the you've got it set up, it will work and continue to run as long as you're a charity and as long as you're meeting Google's criteria.
Yeah, I did resend those links to everyone initially, but there have been a few people, probably maybe 10 or 15, that have registered since then. So I'll resend that email. That had it in there, didn't it, Peter, with a link to on how to apply? Yeah, that all had the necessary information. Yeah, so I'll resend that to everyone anyway post this session.
Beautiful.
And did you answer that? Sorry, did you need to apply each year? That was a question. Did you see?
Yeah, no, you don't need to reapply each year. And you don't need to, other than following the basic requirements of making sure that there are certain click-through requirements. So if your ads aren't incredibly relevant or people just simply aren't clicking on them, obviously Google does want to tell a good story about the organizations they're supporting and the impact that it's having. So if you aren't getting clicks or people just aren't searching for the different terms that you're trying to advertise for, you can get the grant revoked. So it is important to make sure that it is having an impact. But you know, as most charities do, you know, if you're advertising and trying to get the word out there, and it is something that is impacting people's lives, you generally will be able to maintain those minimum sort of requirements there.
Yeah, great. So I'm just taking a photo of someone's question I didn't get before. Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. I don't think there are any other questions there. Alistair, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I know you're now warmed up. But just for the sake of the recording, do you mind repeating your explanation on capacity building? I'm so sorry.
It's never going to be as good as the first one.
I bet it will be.
The capacity building is really the process that enables a team organization to develop skills, processes, abilities to achieve objectives, manage challenges, establish good governance, improve services, or grow effectively. So where we focus in capacity building within our grants is really on good governance and planning. So that includes strategic days, constitution reviews, board appraisals, that sort of thing. Information technology, systems, be it CRM or other systems that are really going to help your organization improve the services in the long term, maintaining or recognizing volunteers, and education and training. But as I sort of said the first time, we do really want the organization to drive their application, because we want specific things from your organization that you can see is going to make the biggest impact on the future of your organization and how you deliver your services to the communities that you work in. How's that? As good. That
is good. Very good. I was almost going to help you because I started typing your answer and I thought, oh, you covered it all. Great. Excellent. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time. Peter, thank you for popping in as well. That's great. It's great to hear that is out there for everyone. And I'll send all necessary details anyway to everyone. But thank you. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time.
Thanks for organising, Shona.
That's okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.